Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his small ship and watched the massive alien vessel pass by. The Vorthak dreadnought was 10 times bigger than his own ship. Its dark hull gleamed with strange metals that humans could not make. Weapons lined its sides like angry eyes staring into space. Jake's ship was called Terra's Hope. But most days it felt more like Terra's last chance. He carried messages between the big alien empires. It was not important work, but it was all humans were allowed to do in space. The aliens treated them like delivery boys who could fly between stars. "Captain, we have another message pickup," said his crew member Danny Price. Danny was young and still believed humans might someday be treated as equals. Jake had stopped believing that years ago. The message came from the Vorthak High Command. Jake read it and felt his stomach turn cold. It was orders for the human colony on Kepler 442b. The Vorthaks wanted all humans there to move to a smaller world. They needed the good farmland for their own people. This happened a lot. Humans would build homes and farms on empty worlds. Then stronger alien races would decide they wanted those worlds. The humans always had to leave. Nobody asked what humans wanted. Jake set course for Kepler 442b to deliver the bad news. As his ship flew through space, he passed more alien vessels. Zephyrian ships that looked like floating crystals. Mentari ships that moved like giant insects through the void. Ethereal ships that were barely solid, more like colorful gas clouds with engines. All of them were beautiful. All of them were powerful. All of them ignored his little human ship completely. On Earth, Commander Lisa Warren watched the daily parade of alien ships through human space. She commanded the defense platform that protected Earth's main spaceport. It was not much protection. Her platform had old missiles and basic energy weapons. Any one of the alien ships passing by could destroy it in seconds. Lisa had been a soldier for 15 years. She remembered when humans first met the galactic community. Everyone had been so excited. Humans thought they would join as equals and explore the galaxy together with other smart species. That dream died fast. The aliens looked at human technology and laughed. Human ships were slow. Human weapons were weak. Human settlements were small and poor. The aliens decided humans were barely worth noticing. Now Lisa spent her days watching alien warships pass through human space without even asking permission. They flew wherever they wanted. They took whatever they needed. Humans could only watch and try to stay out of their way. "Commander," said her aide, "we're getting reports from the outer colonies. More displacement orders." Lisa sighed. 3 more human worlds were being relocated this month. The aliens always used nice words like relocation and reassignment, but everyone knew what it really meant. Humans were being pushed further and further away from the good parts of the galaxy. In the depths of space, Admiral Ben Cooper commanded the largest ship in the human fleet. The UES Guardian was humanity's pride, but it would be a joke to any alien navy. It had basic armor, simple weapons, and engines that could barely keep up with alien cargo ships. Ben had served in the human military for 30 years. He had watched his species go from hopeful explorers to glorified servants. The aliens gave humans jobs like carrying supplies, cleaning stations, and fixing simple machines. Important work was for important species. Today Ben was carrying mining equipment to a Vorthak colony world. The job paid well enough to keep Earth's economy running, but it was not dignified work. Human admirals had become space truckers, hauling alien cargo from place to place. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Vorthak Command," reported his communications officer. Ben opened the message and felt anger rise in his chest. The Vorthaks were changing the delivery route again. Instead of going directly to the colony, They wanted him to stop at 3 different military stations first. It would add weeks to the journey, but aliens never cared about human time or convenience. He followed the orders anyway. Humans always followed alien orders. They had no choice. A Vorthak space station deep in enemy territory. Danny Price worked as a maintenance engineer. Most people thought Danny was just another human doing simple repair work. They were wrong about many things. Danny listened carefully as Vorthak officers talked above his head. They spoke as if he was not there, like he was just another piece of equipment. This was a mistake. Danny understood their language perfectly, and he heard many interesting things. Today he heard them discussing something called the final solution for the human problem. The Vorthaks were tired of having humans spread across the galaxy. They wanted to gather all humans onto a few small worlds where they could be watched and controlled more easily. "These creatures breed too fast," one officer said. "Soon there will be human settlements everywhere. We should act before they become a real problem," another officer laughed. "What problem? They have no weapons that could harm us. Their ships are slower than our cargo vessels. We could conquer all of Earth with a single battle group." Danny kept working on the machinery, but inside his mind was racing. He had heard similar conversations on other stations. The aliens were planning something big, and it was not good for humanity. That night, Danny sent a coded message to his real employers. The message looked like routine maintenance reports, but hidden inside were details about Vorthak military plans. Danny was not just a repair worker. He was a spy, and he was very good at his job. Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Foster worked late in her underground laboratory. Above her head, alien ships crossed the sky like metal birds. But Amy was not watching the sky. She was focused on equations that no alien had ever seen. For 10 years, Amy had been working on theoretical physics that the aliens dismissed as impossible. When human scientists tried to share their research with alien academics, they were told it was too primitive to be worth reading. This was another mistake. Human science was not primitive. It was different. While aliens had focused on making bigger ships and stronger weapons, humans had been exploring the deepest secrets of space and time. Amy's work dealt with quantum mechanics and dimensional physics. She had theories about how space could be folded, how time could be stretched, and how matter could exist in multiple states at once. The aliens thought these ideas were fantasy. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. Amy finished her calculations and smiled. The math was perfect. The theory was sound. All they needed now was the right moment to prove that humans were much more than they appeared to be. Outside her lab, the alien ships continued their endless parade across human skies. They flew with confidence, believing they were the masters of the galaxy. They had no idea that the galaxy was about to change forever. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning across every communication channel in the galaxy. Emperor Zyth-Kalar of the Vorthak Empire appeared on screens from the core worlds to the outer rim territories. His massive form filled the displays, all 6 arms spread wide in a gesture of absolute authority. "Citizens of the galaxy," his voice boomed through translation devices. "Today begins the great unification. All independent worlds will join the Vorthak Empire for the good of galactic order. Resistance is futile. Compliance is mandatory. Captain." Jake Morrison watched the broadcast from his ship's small screen. He was delivering medical supplies to a human research station when the announcement interrupted regular programming. The words made his blood run cold, but it was the list of target worlds that made him truly afraid. Earth was third on the list. Jake had seen what Vorthak unification looked like. He had carried refugees from conquered worlds, people whose homes had been burned and families scattered. The Vorthaks did not just conquer territory. They erased cultures, enslaved populations, and remade worlds in their own image. 2 days later, Jake witnessed something that changed him forever. He was passing through the Dulari system when Vorthak battle groups arrived. The Dulari were peaceful traders who had never hurt anyone. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. The Vorthaks destroyed them anyway. Jake watched from a safe distance as Vorthak ships rained fire on Dulari colonies. Cities that had stood for centuries vanished in minutes. Ships that tried to evacuate civilians were shot down without mercy. By the time the attack ended, 3 billion innocent beings were dead. Jake had seen alien cruelty before, but this was different. This was not conquest. This was extermination. The Vorthaks were not just taking over the galaxy. They were cleaning it of everyone they considered inferior. That night, Jake sent a coded message to Earth. It contained only 4 words, but those words would change everything. The hunt has begun. On Earth, President Helen Brooks called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. The conference? Room filled with military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. Everyone looked worried. They had all heard the reports from the outer territories. "The situation is worse than we thought," said Admiral Ben Cooper as he displayed star charts showing Vorthak fleet movements. "They are not just conquering worlds randomly. This is a coordinated campaign to eliminate every species they consider a threat to their control." "But humans are not a threat," protested General Pete Williams. "We barely have enough ships to defend our own colonies. Our technology is decades behind theirs. Why would they fear us?" President Brooks looked around the room. "Maybe because we are not as weak as we appear to be." She pressed a button on her desk. The wall screens lit up with classified files that most of the people in the room had never seen. Technical specifications for ships that looked nothing like current human vessels. Weapon designs that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Research projects that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. "For 30 years, we have been playing a role," President Brooks explained. "We let the aliens think we were primitive. We showed them our oldest technology and hid our real capabilities. We wanted to avoid a war we were not ready for." Admiral Cooper nodded. "Every ship the aliens have seen, every weapon they know about, every piece of human technology they have analyzed is 50 years out of date. We have been very careful to keep our real strength hidden." Dr. Amy Foster entered the room carrying a data pad. Her face was excited but serious. "The theoretical work is complete," she announced. "We can begin practical applications immediately." She activated a holographic display that showed mathematical equations floating in the air. To most people in the room, they looked like random numbers. But the scientists understood what they were seeing, and their faces went pale. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Carl Jones, the head of Earth's physics department. "No," Amy replied. "It is inevitable. We have solved problems that the aliens think cannot be solved. We can manipulate space-time itself. We can exist in multiple dimensions at once. We can move matter through solid barriers and bend gravity to our will." President Brooks stood up. "Gentlemen, ladies, the masquerade is over. It is time to show the galaxy who humans really are." Across human space, coded messages began flowing through hidden networks. To outside observers, they looked like routine. Communications between mining stations, research facilities, and cargo ships. But embedded in the data were activation codes that had been waiting to be used for 30 years. Commander Lisa Warren received her orders at Earth's main spaceport. She read them 3 times before she fully understood what they meant. Then she smiled for the first time in months. Her defense platform was not just a defense platform. Hidden beneath its ordinary appearance was technology that could destroy entire fleets. The missiles she thought were basic were actually quantum warheads that could phase through any known armor. The energy weapons she believed were weak could manipulate matter at the atomic level. Lisa had been commanding one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy without knowing it. Similar revelations were happening at human facilities throughout known space. Mining stations revealed themselves as hidden military bases. Cargo ships opened hidden weapon bays filled with devices that seemed like magic. Research facilities activated manufacturing systems that could build impossible technologies. Danny, Price received his activation code while pretending to fix a communications array on the Vorthak station. The message appeared to be a routine maintenance reminder, but the hidden text told him everything he needed to know. Danny was not alone on the station. There were 47 other maintenance workers who had been waiting for this moment. They had spent years learning Vorthak security systems, mapping the station's weaknesses and preparing for the day they would strike. That day had finally come. Danny looked around the engineering section where he had worked for 2 years. Soon this entire station would be floating debris. But first, he needed to complete his real mission. He opened his toolkit and removed what appeared to be a simple scanner. In reality, it was a quantum transmitter that could send information across the galaxy instantly. Danny began downloading every file in the Vorthak military database. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, command codes, strategic plans, everything humans would need to fight the coming war. The download completed just as alarms began sounding throughout the station. Danny smiled. Right on schedule. Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Foster watched her screens as data flowed in from human agents across the galaxy. Each piece of intelligence was another nail in the Vorthak Empire's coffin. "How long do we have?" asked President Brooks. "The Vorthak fleets will reach the outer human colonies in 6 days," Amy replied. "They expect to crush our defenses and reach Earth within 2 weeks. Can we stop them?" Amy looked at the president with calm confidence. "Madam President, they are about to learn that humans do not fight like other species. We do not meet force with force. We do not charge into battle with banners flying." She turned back to her screens where targeting systems were coming online across human space. "We hunt." The galaxy was about to discover that the weakest species in known space had been hiding teeth that could tear apart empires. 30 years of careful preparation were about to pay off in ways that would reshape the balance of power forever. The Vorthaks wanted a war. They were about to get one, but not the kind they expected. This would not be a battle between fleets in open space. This would be a demonstration of what happened when humans decided that the time for hiding was over. The sleepers were awake, and they were very, very angry. The first sign that something had changed came at Oro 300 Galactic Standard Time. A Vorthak patrol fleet was conducting routine exercises near human space when their instruments detected an impossible reading. A human cargo ship had just accelerated to light speed in under 2 seconds. Commander ThemHFY stared at his displays in confusion. "Check the sensors," he ordered his crew. "This reading cannot be correct." But the sensors were working perfectly. The human ship had gone from a dead stop to faster than light travel in the time it took him to blink. According to everything the Vorthaks knew about physics, such acceleration should have turned the ship and its crew into scattered atoms. Instead, the ship was gone, leaving only empty space and confused alien officers. Captain Jake Morrison piloted Terra's Hope through dimensions that normal space-time could not contain. His ship looked the same on the outside, but inside everything had changed. The old fusion engines had been replaced with quantum drives that folded space around them. The basic hull now contained armor that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Jake was no longer delivering messages. He was conducting reconnaissance on Vorthak military positions, and he was not alone. Across the galaxy, hundreds of human ships were doing the same thing. They appeared from nowhere, gathered intelligence, and vanished before alien sensors could track them. The revolution had begun, But it was unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Ben Cooper stood on the bridge of what the aliens still thought was a simple cargo hauler. The UES Guardian had been completely rebuilt from the inside out. Where once there had been cargo holds, now there were weapon systems that could tear holes in reality itself. "Admiral, we have targets," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Steve Parker. Ben looked at the tactical display showing a massive Vorthax supply convoy, 50 heavily armed ships carrying weapons and supplies to the invasion fleets. Under the old rules of engagement, Ben's single ship would have run away from such a force. Under the new rules, 50 ships were barely worth his attention. "Fire when ready," Ben ordered. The Guardian's main weapon was not a cannon or a missile launcher. It was a device that could reach across space and time to touch targets directly. The Vorthax ships never saw the attack coming. One moment they were flying in formation. The next moment they simply were not there anymore. 50 ships, 10,000 crew members, and enough supplies to support an invasion force for months had vanished without a trace. The only evidence they had ever existed was the confused distress signals from a Vorthax observation post that had been watching the convoy. Similar attacks were happening throughout Vorthax space. Supply lines were disappearing. Communication relays were going offline. Military stations were falling silent one by one, but there were no explosions, no debris, no signs of battle. The infrastructure of the Vorthax Empire was simply ceasing to exist. On Earth, Dr. Amy Foster monitored the results of her theoretical work becoming deadly reality. The equations she had developed in secret were now being used to rewrite the laws of war. Human weapons did not destroy targets in the traditional sense. They removed targets from existence entirely. "How are our people handling the new technology?" asked President Brooks during their daily briefing. "Better than expected," Amy replied. 30 years of hidden training is paying off. Every human, military officer has been prepared for this moment without knowing it. The simulation exercises they thought were just training were actually preparation for using weapons that bend space-time itself. She pulled up a star chart showing Vorthax territory. Red zones marked areas where their infrastructure had been eliminated. The red was spreading faster than any conventional invasion could have managed. "At this rate, we will have complete control of their supply network within 72 hours, Amy continued. "They will not be able to support their invasion fleets much longer." President Brooks nodded. "And Phase 2? "Ready to begin on your order, Madam President." Commander Lisa Warren watched her screens as the first Vorthax scouts entered human space. They came in small groups, testing defenses and looking for weaknesses. They expected to find the same weak human technology they had always known. Instead, they found Lisa waiting for them. Her defense platform revealed its true nature. As the enemy ships approached, weapons that had been hidden for decades emerged from concealed bays. Energy systems that defied known physics came online. The entire structure transformed from a simple defense station into something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction dream. The Vorthax scouts fired their weapons first, sending energy beams that should have destroyed any human installation. The beams struck Lisa's platform and did nothing at all. The energy was absorbed, redirected, and fed back to the attackers with 10 times the original power. The alien ships died quickly, but more importantly, they had time to send a message back to their commanders before they were destroyed. A message that would spread panic through the Vorthax military. Humans were not weak. They had never been weak. They had been hiding. Deep in Vorthax territory, Danny Price and his fellow operatives began the next phase of their mission. For years they had worked alongside alien soldiers, learning their routines and gaining their trust. The aliens had seen them as harmless humans who fixed machines and cleaned corridors. Now they would learn what those humans could really do. Danny's toolkit contained more than just repair equipment. Hidden among the ordinary instruments were devices that could phase through solid matter, weapons that could fire across dimensional barriers, and communications gear that could coordinate attacks across light years instantly. At exactly 1200 Galactic Standard Time, Danny and 3,000 other human operatives struck simultaneously across 50 different Vorthak installations. They appeared inside secure facilities that should have been impossible to breach. They moved through walls and armor as if they were not there. They struck with precision that seemed supernatural. Within minutes, every major Vorthak command center in the outer territories had gone dark. The aliens' carefully planned invasion suddenly had no coordination, no leadership, and no communication with home bases. The Vorthaks had built their empire on superior technology and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that could simply ignore their defenses and strike at their weak points with perfect accuracy. Emperor Scythe-Kalar received the reports in his throne room on the Vorthak home world. Ship after ship, station after station, entire fleets were simply vanishing. His military commanders had no explanation for what was happening. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. General Krexthul checked his datapad with shaking hands. "Nearly 30% of our border forces, Your Majesty, and the losses are accelerating." "Who is responsible for this? The Zephyrians? The Ethereals?" "No, Your Majesty. The attacks are coming from human space." The Emperor's 6 arms trembled with rage. "Impossible. Humans are insects. Their weapons cannot harm our ships." But even as he spoke, more reports were arriving. The humans were not using conventional weapons. They were using technology that made Vorthak science look primitive. Ships were being erased from existence. Stations were vanishing without a trace. Supply convoys were disappearing between one moment and the next. "Your Majesty," General Krexthul said quietly, "I think we may have made a serious mistake about human capabilities." The Emperor stared at him with all 4 eyes. "Explain. What if they were never weak? What if they were hiding their true strength all along?" For the first time in his reign, Emperor Scythe-Kalar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Across the galaxy, other alien species were watching the unfolding disaster with growing amazement. The Zephyrians had always wondered why humans seemed so different from other species. The Mantari had noticed that human behavior patterns did not match their apparent technology level. The Ethereals had sensed something unusual about human mental patterns but had never been able to identify what it was. Now they were beginning to understand. Humans were not like other species at all. While every other race had developed technology to build bigger ships and stronger weapons, humans had been working on problems that other species had not even imagined. They had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held reality together. They could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They could move matter through solid barriers and bend time and space to their will. The galaxy's weakest species had become its most dangerous predators, and they had done it so quietly that no one had noticed until it was too late. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders as his ship drifted unseen near a major Vorthak fleet base. The message was simple. Phase 2 is authorized. Show them what humans can really do. Jake smiled as he began targeting sequences for weapons that could reach across star systems to touch their targets. The quiet part of the revolution was over. Now came the demonstration that would reshape galactic civilization forever. Emperor Scythe-Kalar's response to the mounting losses was swift and brutal. Every available ship in the Vorthak Empire received the same order: destroy the human homeworld and end this rebellion before it could spread further. The assembled fleet was the largest military force in galactic history. 10,000 warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets. Dreadnoughts that could crack continents with their main guns. Carrier vessels filled with fighters that moved like deadly swarms through space. The combined firepower could have wiped out most star systems. Admiral Zek Morden commanded the invasion force from his flagship, the Death of Worlds. He had conquered 47 planets during his career and had never met an enemy he could not crush through superior numbers and firepower. Humans think they are clever, he told his officers as the fleet prepared to jump to Earth. They have destroyed some of our border forces with tricks and cowardice, but they have never faced the full might of the Empire. Today we will show the galaxy what happens to insects that dare to sting dragons. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, confident that they would arrive at Earth to find a weak planet defended by primitive weapons. They expected the human homeworld to surrender immediately when faced with such overwhelming force. They were wrong about everything. Captain Jake Morrison detected the Vorthak fleet while they were still in hyperspace. His ship's sensors could see across dimensions now, tracking enemy movements through space-time itself. The massive invasion force showed up on his displays like a slow-moving storm of death heading toward Earth. Jake sent the warning to Human Command and received his orders minutes later. He would meet the invasion fleet with a small force of human ships. 50 vessels against 10,000 seemed like suicide, but Jake had learned not to judge battles by the old rules. He opened a communication channel to the other human captains. "You all know what's coming," he said simply. 10,000 Vorthak ships think they're going to burn our homeworld. Let's show them how wrong they are. The human ships moved to intercept the invasion fleet. They did not look like much. 50 small vessels against an armada that stretched across light years. But appearances had always been deceiving when it came to human technology. Admiral Zek Morden laughed when his sensors detected the human response force. 50 ships? That is not even a proper scouting force. Are they trying to surrender? His communications officer shook his head. No, sir, they appear to be taking attack positions. Idiotic creatures. Very well, we will destroy them quickly and continue to their home world. All ships, prepare to fire on my command. The two fleets met in empty space between star systems. 10,000 Vorthak warships against 50 human vessels. Every military expert in the galaxy would have called the outcome obvious. Every military expert in the galaxy was about to be proven wrong. Jake Morrison gave the signal and human ships revealed what they could really do. The Terra's Hope, which had spent years pretending to be a simple courier vessel, opened weapon bays that contained devices the Vorthaks had never imagined. Energy systems that could reach across space and time began charging with power that made stars seem dim. The first human weapons fired and reality itself seemed to bend around the beams. Vorthak ships simply ceased to exist as the energy touched them. Not destroyed, not vaporized, removed from existence entirely as if they had never been built. Admiral Zek Morden stared at his displays in disbelief. What kind of weapons are those? His science officer was frantically checking readings. Sir, I cannot identify the energy signatures. These weapons appear to operate on principles that our science says are impossible. More human ships opened fire, and more Vorthak vessels vanished. The death toll climbed into the thousands within the first minute of combat. But the Vorthaks still had overwhelming numbers, and they began to return fire with everything they had. The human ships did something that made the aliens question their understanding of physics. The enemy fire passed through them as if they were not there. Energy beams and missiles traveled through human vessels without causing any damage at all. They are phasing between dimensions, whispered the science officer. They exist in our reality only when they choose to. Jake Morrison's ship danced between dimensions, appearing just long enough to fire its weapons before vanishing again. Around him, other human captains were doing the same thing. They fought like ghosts, striking from angles that should not have existed and disappearing before retaliation was possible. The battle that should have been a quick victory for the Vorthaks became a nightmare. Their overwhelming numbers meant nothing when they could not hit targets that existed in multiple realities at once. Their superior firepower was useless against enemies that could phase through solid matter. Within an hour, half the Vorthak invasion fleet had been destroyed. The survivors were scattered and confused, their formation broken, and their morale shattered. Admiral Zekmorden realized he was not fighting a battle. He was watching an execution. Back on Earth, Admiral Ben Cooper was conducting his own operations against Vorthak strongholds throughout their empire. His ships appeared simultaneously at dozens of military installations, striking with coordination that should have been impossible across such vast distances. The UES Guardian materialized inside the shields of Fortress Korvac, the most heavily defended installation in Vorthak space. The fortress had walls that could withstand planet-killing weapons and shields that had never been penetrated in 2 centuries of warfare. None of that mattered when the attack came from inside the defenses. Ben's weapons tore through the fortress, from within, destroying vital systems and eliminating defensive positions with surgical precision. The Vorthak defenders fired desperately at targets that appeared and vanished like deadly phantoms. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "all primary targets are neutralized. The fortress is disabled. Move to the next target," Ben ordered. "We have 17 more installations to visit before dawn." Similar attacks were happening across Vorthak space. Human ships appeared inside defensive perimeters that should have been impenetrable. They struck at command centers, weapon platforms, and supply depots with timing so perfect that it seemed choreographed. The Vorthak military machine that had conquered half the galaxy was being dismantled piece by enemies who fought like supernatural forces. Dr. Amy Foster monitored the battles from her laboratory on Earth. Her theoretical work had become a weapon that was reshaping the nature of warfare itself. Equations that had existed only on paper were now destroying the largest empire in galactic history. "The quantum destabilization weapon is ready," she reported to President Brooks. "We can target their home system whenever you give the order." President Brooks looked at the tactical displays showing Vorthak fleet positions. The enemy still had thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. Conventional warfare would have taken years to defeat such an empire. But humans did not fight conventional wars. "What will happen to their star system?" Brooks asked. Amy's face was grim. "Complete destabilization of the quantum field. Every planet in the system will phase out of normal space-time. They will still exist, but not in any dimension that supports life as we know it." It was the ultimate weapon, one that could erase entire star systems from reality. The Vorthaks had never imagined such power was possible. "Madam President," came a voice from the communication center, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthak Emperor. He's requesting terms for surrender." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "How much of his fleet is left?" "Less than 20%, and those ships are scattered across dozens of systems. His military command structure has been completely destroyed." President Brooks considered the situation. The Vorthak Empire that had ruled through fear and brutality was broken. Their fleets were destroyed, their strongholds captured, and their leadership in chaos. "Dr. Foster," she said finally, "prepare the destabilization weapon, but do not fire. Let's see if the Emperor is sincere about surrender." Amy nodded and began the targeting sequence. The weapon would be ready if needed, but perhaps the demonstration of power had been enough. Across the galaxy, the other alien species watched in stunned silence as the mighty Vorthak Empire collapsed in a single day. The humans had not conquered territory or enslaved populations. They had simply removed their enemies from existence with technology that seemed like magic. The galaxy's weakest species had become its apex predators overnight, and they had done it so thoroughly that resistance seemed pointless. Emperor Zith Kalar sat alone in his throne room surrounded by reports of disaster. His great empire was in ruins, his fleets were destroyed, his people were in panic. And it had all been done by the species he had dismissed as harmless insects. The humans had been patient, hiding their true strength for decades while appearing weak and helpless. Now their patience had ended, and their vengeance was absolute. For the first time in Vorthak history, an emperor prepared to surrender unconditionally to creatures his people had considered beneath notice. The age of Vorthak dominance was over. The age of human supremacy had begun. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from every major species sat in stunned silence as they processed what had happened over the past 18 hours. The Vorthak Empire, which had controlled 60% of known space, no longer existed as a political entity. The Zephyrian representative, Ambassador Crystal Song, was the first to speak. Her crystalline form chimed softly as she addressed the chamber. In all my centuries of diplomatic service, I have never witnessed such a complete reversal of galactic power. How did we miss this? How did none of us realize what the humans were capable of? Ambassador Buzz Click of the Mantari shifted his insectoid form nervously. Our intelligence services reported that human technology was primitive. Their ships were slow, their weapons were basic, their settlements were small and weak. Everything we observed supported this assessment. Everything we were allowed to observe, corrected Ambassador Mistwalker of the Ethereals. His gaseous form swirled with patterns that indicated deep concern. I believe we have been deceived on a scale that defies comprehension. The humans have been conducting the most sophisticated deception in galactic history. President Helen Brooks entered the chamber accompanied by a small delegation of human officials. She moved with calm confidence, but everyone in the room could feel the change in her presence. This was no longer the leader of a minor species begging for scraps of respect. This was the representative of the galaxy's new apex power. Honored delegates, President Brooks began. I know you have many questions about recent events. I am here to provide answers and to discuss the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador Crystal Song leaned forward. President Brooks, our sensor networks detected weapons that appear to violate known laws of physics. Your ships phase through solid matter, your energy beams erase targets from existence, and your forces can coordinate attacks across impossible distances. How is this possible? Brooks smiled slightly. Ambassador, your people have always been focused on building larger structures and more efficient energy systems. The Mantari have perfected biological engineering and hive coordination. The Ethereals have mastered energy manipulation and consciousness transfer, all remarkable achievements. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. Humans took a different path. While you were perfecting the technologies you already understood, we were exploring questions that seemed impossible to answer. We studied the deepest foundations of reality itself: quantum mechanics, dimensional physics, temporal manipulation. Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward and activated a holographic display showing mathematical equations that made the alien scientists gasp in recognition. These are the theoretical frameworks that govern space-time at its most fundamental level. Most species consider such research to be purely academic because the practical applications seem impossible. But they are not impossible, Brooks continued. They simply require a completely different approach to engineering and physics. While your species built ships that could travel faster through normal space, we learned how to step outside of normal space entirely. Ambassador Buzzclick made a clicking sound that indicated confusion. But why hide this capability? Why pretend to be weak for so many decades? President Brooks's expression became serious. Because we learned early in our contact with galactic civilization that strength invites conflict. We saw how the Vorthax treated species they considered threats. They destroyed them. We chose a different strategy. She gestured to the empty seats where Vorthak representatives should have been sitting. We allowed ourselves to appear weak while we prepared for the day when our patience would run out. That day came when the Vorthax decided to exterminate peaceful species like the Dalari. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber, still wearing his simple courier captain's uniform. But everyone present now knew that his humble merchant vessel could destroy entire fleets. The humans call it the long game, Jake explained to the assembled delegates. We spent 30 years gathering intelligence, placing our people in positions throughout your territories and preparing for a conflict we hoped would never come. He activated another display showing the scope of human intelligence operations. Every maintenance worker, every engineer, every scientist who seemed to be just another human doing simple jobs, they were all part of a network that spanned the galaxy. We learned your weaknesses, your plans, your capabilities, while you learned nothing real about ours. Admiral Ben Cooper joined the discussion. The ships you saw, the weapons you analyzed, the technology you dismissed as primitive, all of it was decades out of date. We kept our real capabilities hidden while you made plans based on false information. Ambassador Mistwalker's form swirled with what looked like resignation. And now you hold absolute power over galactic civilization. What are your intentions, humans? Will you rule as the Vorthax did through fear and oppression? President Brooks shook her head. The human way is different from the Vorthak way. We do not seek to conquer or enslave. We seek justice and protection for those who cannot protect themselves. She pressed a control, and the main display showed star charts of former Vorthak territory. These worlds are now under human protection. The slaves have been freed, the concentration camps have been emptied, and the oppressive governments have been removed. We are helping these populations rebuild their societies as free peoples. Commander Lisa Warren spoke from her position near the back of the chamber. Human fleets are already patrolling former Vorthak space to prevent chaos and protect vulnerable populations. But we are not occupying these worlds. We are liberating them. What about the surviving Vorthax? Asked Ambassador Crystalsong. There are still millions of their people scattered across refugee camps and broken fleets. They will be judged according to their individual actions, Brooks replied. Those who committed war crimes will face trial. Those who were simply following orders will be allowed to resettle on designated worlds where they can rebuild their society without the ability to threaten others. Danny Price stepped forward, no longer pretending to be a simple maintenance worker. Madam President, the intelligence network is reporting that some Vorthak military units are attempting to regroup in the outer territories. Brooks nodded. Thank you, Agent Price. Admiral Cooper, please dispatch forces to deal with any remaining Vorthak resistance. Make it clear that the war is over and further conflict will only bring more destruction. The alien delegates exchanged worried glances as they realized the full scope of human capabilities. Not only could humans destroy entire empires overnight, they had intelligence networks that spanned the galaxy and military forces that could respond to threats anywhere within hours. Ambassador Buzzclick made a series of clicks that indicated submission. President Brooks, the Mantari Collective wishes to formally recognize human authority over galactic affairs. We pledge our cooperation with the new order. Similar declarations followed from the other species. None of them wanted to test human patience the way the Vorthax had. President Brooks raised a hand for silence. I appreciate your cooperation, but I want to be clear about something. Humans do not seek to rule over other species. We seek to protect galactic civilization from those who would destroy it. She activated a new display showing a proposed structure for galactic government. We are establishing a new galactic council with enhanced powers to prevent future wars of conquest. Every species will have representation proportional to their population and contribution to galactic welfare. And if we disagree with human decisions? Asked Ambassador Mistwalker. Then we will discuss our disagreements like civilized beings, Brooks replied. But there are certain principles that are not negotiable. The strong will not be allowed to prey on the weak. Genocide will not be tolerated. Slavery will not be permitted. Species that attempt such actions will face the same fate as the Vorthak Empire. Dr. Amy Foster added, "We have capabilities that make resistance pointless, but we would prefer cooperation. Human technology can benefit all species if we work together instead of fighting each other." She demonstrated by showing designs for medical devices that could cure previously incurable diseases, environmental systems that could restore damaged planets, and energy sources that could power entire civilizations without depleting resources. This is what we offer, Brooks concluded. A galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them. A civilization where scientific advancement benefits everyone instead of creating new weapons of war. A future where species cooperate instead of conquering each other. Ambassador Crystal Song chimed thoughtfully. And if we accept this new order, what assurance do we have that humans will not become the next Vorthak Empire? President Brooks smiled, and for the first time it was a warm, genuine expression instead of a diplomatic mask. Because, Ambassador, we had the power to become conquerors 30 years ago, and we chose not to use it until we had no other choice. We could have ruled the galaxy decades ago, but we preferred to remain hidden and peaceful. She gestured to her companions. Captain Morrison could have used his real capabilities to dominate trade routes. Admiral Cooper could have conquered entire sectors with his true fleet strength. Dr. Foster could have held the galaxy hostage